purpose of the door was to show that Sears, which is a department store, was one of the first stores that allowed blacks to shop with whites.
Other doors representing historic black entities like Motown Records, and another displaying the message from chains to change. However, the school district deems the segregation era entrance inappropriate.
What is good, YouTube family? I got this quick video I wanted to cover. This is pretty freaking silly. They got this historical display of Sears, where basically they had segregated entrances for black and white. Now, I understand both sides of the argument here, but in my opinion, it's inappropriate, and I don't think this is necessary for necessarily teaching black history, because technically, if you wanted to go that far, you could, I mean, where is the line drawn in terms of the experience that children have to go through to relive history? But I'm gonna give a little bit more dialogue after I go ahead and jump into this video. So let's get into it.
Tonight, these classroom doors labeled colored entrance and white entrance, sparking new debate over how to handle the nation's painful racial history in schools. The display depicting a segregation-era Sears department store entrance from the 1930s, part of a Black History Month lesson at West Charlotte High.
Her only thing was like making sure that the kids knew or could see a visual of how things were back in the day.
The school ordering the teacher to take down the signs, but her daughter says they're missing the point.
The purpose of the door was to show that Sears, which is a department store, was one of the first stores that allowed blacks to shop with whites.
Other doors representing historic black entities like Motown Records, and another displaying the message from chains to change. However, the school district deems the segregation era entrance inappropriate. In a statement provided to NBC News, the district saying that the school district is required to provide social studies and history lessons to all our students in an age-appropriate manner, and that the activity is not aligned with state standards or with the CMS curriculum and approved lesson plans.
As a society, we have what I would call oppression fatigue.
Historian LaGarrett King sees pressure coming from the political environment, but also value in the conversations the display generates.
You can't teach integration without teaching segregation, right? And those doors right there, just seem like it was, another aspect to start conversation.
Some members
I like how they're basically trying to equate educating the students with having the display, as if you cannot educate the students without having the display. That doesn't make any sense. But I mean, of course, some people who are obviously obsessed with this sort of topic and obsessed with the racial history of the country are going to support stuff like this because that's all they think about, and that's probably all they care about at the end of the day. So of course they're going to support stuff like that.
Community agree. Sharice Terry runs a local coffee shop that sells black memorabilia.
What I see is somebody has done a very good job at recreating and illustrating what the times has been like for black people.
Online, the reception is mixed. Some users calling it a great idea, and the lesson is loud and clear. Imagine what our grandparents and ancestors felt, while others are calling it disgraceful and not the best learning objective.
So I want to go ahead and give part of my piece before I let this finish out. So part of my opinion here. So the thing is this: I've seen a lot of people say, well, it's about ensuring that the kids and children understood and could feel how people felt back then, at least for a moment, and then realize, well, they felt like that all the time, right? So I get what they're saying, but I'm telling you why I disagree with it. In order to understand history, which I think is the point of history, is you don't need to feel what the people felt. You just need to understand and comprehend the history. You don't need to feel anything. You can feel however you want about it. Like, it is what it is, but you just need to understand the history, ideally, so we won't repeat similar mistakes. But feeling it, I would argue, is a bad thing, because for example, a lot of this stuff none of these kids have ever dealt with. If it wasn't for displays like this, they would probably, even though they learned about the history, wouldn't really feel that much about it, besides the fact that it's history and something that we experienced as a nation in the past before majority of people were born, right? So at the point of feeling it, what it leads to is resentment. And I would argue resentment on both sides. I could tell you, as a person who went through this myself growing up, okay, when you learn about certain things and it's pressed, you're basically not just pressed to understand it. You're pressed by educators, by parents and other family members, hell, other students, teachers, right? I mentioned educators, but I'll say it again, teachers specifically, to feel some sort of way, like, hey, feel bad about this, what's wrong with you, type of energy. And essentially, if you're a black or colored person, then it leads to resentment, including to those around you that had nothing to do with what was going on at the time. And I would argue, even though I'm not white, if you're a white person and other people are resentful towards you, you would probably start to feel resentful back. Like, well, even though some people might have white guilt, they might feel like, well, hey, I didn't do anything, so why are all the black people just mad at me all the time, even though I didn't do anything, my parents didn't do anything, my friends didn't do anything, and so forth, right? So again, I understand wanting to learn it, because I know a lot of people are pea-brains and they'll think like, oh, I'm saying you shouldn't learn black history. Nobody ever said that. You're never going to hear that on my channel. Ron DeSantis didn't say that out of Florida. Black history is still taught in Florida. For the people who act like critical race theory and black history are the same thing, they're not. Critical race theory does not have black history in the name. It has race in theory in the name because that's what it's about. It's about critical race theory. Black history is a totally different subject. But that's an aside. I just want to say that for those who don't know, please actually look it up, okay? But history is taught, and that's a good thing. However, it shouldn't necessarily dictate that you have to experience certain things. In my opinion, this is a bridge too far because, like they said, the people who are literally advocating for people feeling how people felt back then, I disagree with that. Like, for example, I know a lot about the Holocaust based off of what was taught in school, and I never forgot a lot of it. And I didn't feel the Holocaust, right? We didn't do any recreations like I was in a concentration camp in order for me to understand what happened. Okay, so I got another story I'll share. I'll let the video close out, and then I'll share this final story at the end here.
But for LeGarrette King, disagreement and discomfort are all a part of facing our history.
Joy is important. Exceptionality is important. The heroes and heroines are important, right? But if you want to teach a holistic kind of understanding of Black history, unfortunately, oppression, anti-Blackness, and power are kind of intertwined within that history.
And Antonia Hilton joins us now on set. So, Antonia, what are academics telling you about the response to all of this?
Well, Ellison, the historian that we spoke to thinks that the district may be trying to get ahead of the kind of backlash that we've seen coming from parents and politicians in recent years whenever these controversies have come to schools. And, you know, there is a serious risk. In some cases, schools have passed new policies, there are new laws in place, and so they have to take action and try to protect themselves when these kinds of difficulties come up.
So that's basically the end. She says, like, the other person says like one more word after that. But here's the thing, guys. For those who are still here watching this part of the video, I'm gonna mention something that actually happened when I was growing up. Okay, I had this teacher. I remember I was a sophomore high school. Okay, I had this black teacher. You know, she was very much Black power, you know, like, you know, she was very much Black power teacher, okay? And, you know, a lot of people were like that, but she was like extra, okay? And she had like dreads, and she said she knew like her African history in terms of like where she was from. So apparently this was like a big thing for her. But what happened is during Black History Month, we were doing a history lesson, and she told everybody to go lay down on the floor, okay? It was mostly black kids, like a couple white kids in class. And she told everybody to lay down on the floor. And then she she was basically acting like a slave master, okay? And she took like a bottle sprayer of water, and she was like spraying it in the air so like little droplets would fall and hit us like in the face. And she was basically saying crazy things. And anytime anybody would like complain about the floor being uncomfortable, she would like say some ridiculous remark. Now, she didn't say like the N-word or anything like that in class because, you know, she wasn't that crazy, but she did say like things basically telling us like, shut up, or like stuff like that. No talking, you know, basically treating us effectively like animals. And she said the reason she did this was because the intention was to educate us about how people felt on slave ships. Now, in my opinion, stuff like this is pointless because, one, you're never going to get the full weight of the experience because obviously you weren't there. So I'd imagine actually being taken away from your home, like if somebody comes just take me away from my home right now and just put me on a ship and ship me off somewhere, I'd imagine it feel a lot different than being in a classroom and having some idiotic teacher tell me to get on the floor and spray water in my face. But I feel the same way about this door display, right? You can educate without these ridiculous, grandiose, over-the-top displays. You know, I get the teachers are bored in class and they just want to do something fun for them sometimes, but you got to think about the ramifications behind it. Obviously, some people are not going to agree and like certain things. I'm one of those people who would not like this sort of stuff, even though, yeah, I am like big on Black history. I know a lot of Black history, not everything, because most people don't know everything, but unless they're like a historian. But I know a lot about Black history, and that doesn't necessarily mean that I want any kids I have to go to class and see segregated doors or create discomfort. Like you can have uncomfortable conversations without being uncomfortable. Okay, I'm gonna say that again. You can have uncomfortable conversations without being uncomfortable. Basically, the history may be uncomfortable, but you don't have to have an uncomfortable environment necessarily just to teach a subject where, you know, people are seeing segregated doors in real life. History is just that, it's history. We can't change it, but we don't have to relive it just so we can learn a lesson. Those are just my thoughts. Let me know what y'all think. Drop a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Appreciate y'all watching the Black Anomaly Rising channel. I'm out.
And I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm blacker than black, and I'm black, y'all.